Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Recruit Military Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts covering all things military transition, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much more. My name is Lucas Connolly, retired U.S. Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to share the ins and outs of navigating the turbulent waters of civilian employment. If you're in search of meaningful employment, well, you're in the right place. Please visit rmvets.live to learn more. Are you getting ready to transition out of the military after a long period of service? Are you wondering what you need to do to prepare or things you should be on the lookout for as you transition from a long military career to civilian employment? Well, then you are in the right place. So you're going to love today's guests. Today's topic is transition tips from a senior leader's perspective. Our guest is coming to us live from Colorado Springs, Colorado. He's a veteran of 3 decades of service in the United States Air Force. He spent more than 27 years as a pilot aboard B-52, B-1, and B-2 bombers. I'll tell you from my personal experience, these airframes were invaluable tools in the war on terror. He finished out his career helping to put America's best and brightest young men and women into uniform as the commander of the United States Air Force Recruiting Services. After retiring in 2018, he joined Jacobs Engineering as a strategic level leader in their aerospace technology and nuclear business lines. Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General Garrett Harencak. Sir, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Lucas. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure to have you, sir. And we're glad you could make time out of your busy schedule. All right, folks. Well, now that you know who we are, we'd love to hear who you are. Hit us up in that chat window with your comments, questions, and concerns. Let us know where you're at, where you're coming from. Are you retired? Are you in transition? Are you a veteran? Are you a mil-spouse? Something else we haven't thought of. If you've got any questions, feel free to throw them in there, and time allowing, we'll get after them. All right, folks, as they say in the Air Force, we're about to go wheels up.
All right.
Sir, I've heard it said before, fortune favors the prepared. Some have even pointed out that it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. If I've been in the Army for a couple of decades, Marines, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, or Space Force, and my retirement is looming, what do I need to know to prepare for that big move?
Well, Lucas, I think the first thing that retirees or those transitioning out of the military need to know is they have to have a plan. And you know that sounds oh, thank you, Captain Obvious, right? Oh, you got to have a plan. But to be more specific, I think you need to have a plan that isn't so planned out that doesn't allow yourself any flexibility. I have people coming to me saying, "Hey, sir, I'm getting ready to punch out." And I said, "Well, great. Do you have a plan?" And he goes, "Sure. Yeah, I got a plan." Or he or she will say, "Yeah, I want to move to Kenosha, Wisconsin. I want to live on Elm Street and make $142,000 and do this specific job." And my response to that is, well, what a great plan. I hope it works out. Chances are, though, when you limit yourself so much, that may not work out as you see, and you're just setting yourself up for some disappointment here. My point is, and I try to tell transitioning military folks, is have a plan, kind of like Napoleon used to have a plan. He used to always have a plan with many branches. He had a general theme. Hey, this campaign season, we're going to take Vienna, for example. But he'd send out his marshals and his columns, and he'd say, okay, always march to the sound of cannon in the absence of other orders. But let's get out there and see what damage we could do, right? I mean, that was his brilliance. And take that and kind of do that for your own transition. What's a general theme? Hey, after 30 years, 20 years, I want to live where my spouse wants to live. I want to live near family. Okay, fine. So that's a big thing. Well, what else? What else? And I want to contribute here, or I'm thinking of using some of my skill sets there. Great. That's the type of plan you need to have. And then now let's get out there. Let's talk to the people who might be able to help us. Let's get out there and start looking at it. But the idea is, and I think sometimes in transition courses, they teach you, well, you got to have this, you got to know this, and you got to have your plan. Don't just go out there and not be specific. I'm not saying you shouldn't be a little bit specific, but have a plan with many branches. Give yourself some flexibility. See what's most important. If it's geography, I get it. I'm living in Colorado Springs because that's where my wife wanted to live in Colorado Springs. It's a great place. But so that was important to me, to find a company that would allow me to live in Colorado Springs to keep my spouse and family happy. That was a priority for me personally. Finding a company that didn't care that I lived in Colorado Springs, for example. But now I want some of the other things. I want a competitive salary. You want to do something that interests you, all that other stuff. And so find out what are your top one or two things and develop a plan around those themes. And I think that'll really help. So prep is key, but not over prep.
Right. And I think one of the things that, back to my days of being a staff officer, you have to make sure that your plans, branches, or your plan A, B, and C are distinct. I remember talking to a client and I said, so what's your plan when you get out? And he says, well, I'm going into the sheriff's department. And I said, well, what if that doesn't work out? He says, well, I'm going into the state police. I said, well, what if that doesn't work out? He said, well, I'm going into the local police. I said, yeah, what if you get into a motorcycle accident and you can't run, jog, or jump? Your plans are not distinct. They're three versions of the same plan.
Right.
So
that's a great point too. And I'm sure we're going to get to it some more, but also branch out. Remember your time in the military. You were trained around a lot of things. Maybe you're an armor officer. Maybe you were an MP. Maybe you were a bomber pilot. Maybe you were a personnelist. Okay, but remember, in the military, you were so much more than just your MOS.
Absolutely.
And so if you get out thinking, well, I've only been a cop, therefore I can only be a cop. Well, if that's what you want to do, great. I understand that. But remember, your value is way more than what your MOS was. Your leadership, your experiences, all you bring to the table as a transitioning military person. So don't feel like, well, I was a cop in the military, so therefore my only choice is a cop. That is an absolutely false thing to think about. And you are valued for a lot of other things.
Yeah, and I do think that transitioning service members, especially folks that have been in for decades, they really do undervalue themselves and almost seem prepared to go out into the market with their hat in their hand as if they are some kind of a charity case.
Right. All right. And Lucas, I see that in my 4 years at Jacobs, I've hired a lot of military people. My company has, particularly my portion of the company, is 28% veterans. We hire them a lot, and I'm always amazed at how much we undervalue ourselves. Remember, to all the transitioning folks out there, you have the power. You are needed. You are needed. Companies like mine, companies all around the nation, what do they want? Okay. At the end of the day, whatever they do, whether they're in national defense or food service or construction, here's what every company wants. They want somebody who could come in, build a team, motivate that team, and get that team to deliver on time, on cost, whatever the task was. Keep the customer happy, all other stuff. Folks, that's what we have been doing in the military our entire lives. Since we're an E1 or an O1, what have we been doing? That. It doesn't matter whether we were an artillery person or we served on a ship somewhere. It doesn't matter. What companies want is leadership. What companies want is ability for somebody to come and take hold of a project, lead a team, and make sure that they get the job done, and provide value for their shareholders and for their company. So you have to remember, when you're transitioning, folks, you have the power. You are needed. You are needed. You don't. You want to be hired, right? And all this other stuff. You don't have to be arrogant about it or anything, but remember, you have the power. Do not undervalue yourself. You are way more valuable than you believe yourself to be. Companies want you, and if you happen to have that security clearance, oh my gosh,
even better.
Cleared person. Oh my God, you show up on time. You don't have felonies that are lurking out there. There are so many reasons why companies want you. So when you come to interview, remember you have the value. And there are so many ways that you should use that power in negotiations of salary.
Absolutely,
is the biggest one. How many times do people sit there and do the calculation? Well, I'm making now, say $100,000. But if I retire, I'll make $50,000. So if I get a $70,000 salary, I'm making $20,000 more. Stop doing that. When people do that, I just want to, grab them by shirts. Don't do that. Civilians wouldn't do that. They wouldn't say, oh, well, guess what? My Uncle Eddie left me $100,000 in his estate. So I really only need to make $100,000 at this job. Nobody else does that. Why do transitioning military people count something, their retirement, in and are happy by adding that into it?
It's not relevant.
It's not relevant. So stop it. If you're worth $140,000, you're worth $140,000 regardless of what the United States government is going to pay you in a retirement.
Yeah, and I think what some of us fall into the trap of doing is we go through those budget exercises in the various TAP programs, and then identify, this is my civilian equivalent of my military compensation. This is the amount of money I'm going to need to maintain my standard of living, and they kind of default towards that number as being their target. When really it's their walkaway number. It's their bottom line of the band that they should be accepting. And they never clearly identify what their position is going into a salary negotiation.
Absolutely. And there's so many other things that, you need to be aware of that companies, a lot of times hirers will tell the HR people will tell the person hiring, okay, we're going to offer this person $120,000. But then you ask them, well, what will we go to when they count? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we'll go to 140. Okay. And we'll offer somebody 120. And what do military people do? Why? Because loyalty-based, service above self, all that stuff. They go, 120,000. Ooh, that's more than, when I did my calculation at TAP class.
Yep.
I'll take it. And I just go, stop. You are supposed to come back.
You're supposed to negotiate.
Negotiate. Come back with an offer. Tell us that's not enough. We go into it knowing that that's not enough, that will go up another 20,000 or whatever it is, right? So, you see that all the time. Counter offer. Again, don't undervalue yourself. I know you'll get that cost and you go, wow, that's way more than I'm making now. Okay, who cares? Make more. Come back. I don't know a company out there that will give you their highest offer right off the bat. I mean,
no, of course not.
Of course, they're not going to do it. You wouldn't do it when you sell a house or buy a house
or a car.
Or a car. You don't do that. Why would you expect it? And yet I see that in transitioning military all the time. So that's something you have to get over. The other thing is people really like the idea, especially military people, of the signing bonus. I mean, who doesn't want, right, 20 grand, 15 grand as they're transitioning out? Wow, isn't that nice? A lot of companies use that, and they're more than happy to give you a lower salary
with a signing bonus,
but give you a signing bonus of 20,000 or say 10,000, 15,000. And my point is okay, if you can negotiate the highest salary you can and get a signing bonus, God bless you. Good luck. That's perfect. But people focus on, well, I want a signing bonus. My buddy last year got out and he got a $20,000 signing bonus. I want a $20,000 signing bonus. Well, maybe that worked for that person. Maybe there was a lot of reasons, but don't be suckered into that because it's great for a company. They'll happily give you a $20,000, but now what that means, you're not going to get the highest salary that you could have gotten. And think about it now. You are going to be starting at that salary. All the bonuses, everything, every other thing comes to that. So, you know, what you learned as a kid with compound interest, it's the same sort of idea, right? I mean, if you could get an extra $10,000 in salary over a period of, say, you work for this company 20 years, oh my gosh, isn't that better than just getting a lump sum of $20,000?
And then, of course, then there's the, you know, the total compensation package. I've advised some folks when they come back with a, you know, when you get that you get that knock 'em dead interview is done and you're feeling great and you get that phone call, and they want to start talking salary. The old adage, nobody's really got any numbers to back this up that I've found, but the old adage would appear to be true. The first one to say a number loses. Have you heard this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why, you know, I always counsel people, get the offer. You know, a lot of times they'll say, well, what's your salary range? You know, what are you looking for in salary? And that really helps a company, right? I mean, because they do it. But for the most part, especially if you're talking about contractors or whatever, they're going to hire you into because they're charging the government, if you will, for example, if you do go into, say, national defense work, and they're going to say, hey, we're hiring this cyber person, right? And here's our job. These are our job scales. We could pay these because you're going to essentially reimburse us for the people, right? So we have a general idea. Everybody kind of has a general idea of salary when they're hiring someone. It's not wide open. So if you come up and you say, oh, well, geez, 140, they may have been thinking 180, right? Well, guess where negotiations start? At 140. So listen, it's a simple thing, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but you just go, well, you know, tell me what you think my value is to your company, and then I'll respond to that. What's your salary? What salary would you like to make? I always say $1.8 million. You know, I mean, that's what I'd like.
I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it, right? I mean, so don't play that game. Don't play that game. Listen, I bring great value to your organization. My 20 years as an Army officer or as an E8 or all I've done in the Navy, I bring great value to you. You need me. You know, advocate for yourself. What do you think my value is to you? And then we'll start the discussions from there.
Because they have a number. They already have, before the interview, they have a number on a piece of paper that says what their target is. And if they can get you for less, they sure will.
Well, yeah. And because you have almost a fiduciary responsibility for your shareholders, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's called capitalism, right? So, but in my company and in any other company, okay, we know the salary range for what we're going to hire that person. We do not go into it blind. We know that there's a range, what we'd like to hire the person for, and then what we will end up paying depending on how desperately we need that person. And again, remember, we need you. I don't know what it was like 10 years ago. I was active duty 10 years ago. I don't know what it was like 15 years ago. I don't know what it was like during the Great Recession or whatever. I'm telling you what it's like now. You are needed. I mean, every company is trying to hire cleared workers. Every company out there is trying to hire veterans because they know what they can get there. And so right now you have the power. I don't know whether you will 10 years from now, but right now you do. So as you said earlier, this is not a time where you go hat in hand saying, please, sir, give me a job and some porridge. No, right now it's, hey, you want me? If not, I'm going somewhere else. And someone else will pay for my years of experience. And most of all, what most companies want is the basic leadership that we all know and how to do. And let me tell you, leadership in the civilian world is not anything like what we're used to. So they need our leadership.
And that's something as well to give some consideration to, you know, more senior folks that, you know, work within the Beltway or within the Pentagon or within some of those larger headquarters and organizations. The more senior folks are exposed to civilian contractors, DoD, civilian employees, whereas others who stay as close to the operational force as humanly possible, they like to get out there and keep hooking and jabbing with bad guys right up until their retirement date. They're close every day with uniforms and gun oil and black powder and all the exciting things that make the military fun. As you get out, however, you're going into a new environment. You're going into a world where some of the things that were acceptable in your last work environment might not be acceptable in this. The leadership style you used before might not fit with where you're going. Can you talk just a bit about adapting the workplace culture?
Right. I think a workplace culture is something you should think about. And remember, since you have the power now, you need to choose a place where they're going to appreciate your skills. My company, Jacobs Engineering, is outstanding when it comes to appreciating what the military veterans come from. We have our own affinity group, if you will, within the company, called VetNet. We really support reservists, all that other stuff. Why? Because this company really understands that the military culture brings a needed leadership in, and they take care of it, and they value it. Not all companies are like that. I think in the national security realm, you'll find that almost every company is welcoming of the diversity of thought, if you will, that military members bring to an organization. Some companies out there, not so much. And one of the reasons why, I've stayed with Jacobs, I've had other offices, because how they treat military veterans and how they appreciate leadership and, the taking care of the troops and the people and all that other stuff. There are companies out there that are not like that. And it's not that they're so anti-military. They have no understanding.
I don't get it.
Let's remember, it's been over 40 years of an all-volunteer force. Less than 0.5% has served. So the amount of influencers out there, the amount of people who understand the military, just do not exist. So they have a lot of false ideas of military leadership. They
negative stereotypes.
Wander around a stereotype with a big cigar, barking out orders. I mean, it's just not realistic. And so find out do a little research on the company culture. Talk to people. Make sure that, hey, you're gonna feel welcome there. And I think that's something that if you want to take a little chance, go ahead, because remember, most transitioning military people before they retire, for sure, will serve. I think the data shows 2.5 different companies.
Right.
And that's for a lot of different reasons, Lucas. I mean, it could be that people just, this is not for me. This place is not the culture I want. I don't like the leadership here or whatever. I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I'm moving on. Sometimes it's just a company, sells off a stake of it, and all of a sudden you're excess, or they buy another company, or a company buys them. So don't expect, this is not like you signed an oath that you're going to serve 20 years with whatever company. Right. So accept the fact that, hey, this is not the loyalty now is not to the nation, right? The loyalty now should be toward your family and what's best for you. And so if it's not working out, move on, because there's another company that needs you.
And be prepared for that, and I've heard some of the same statistics that some people call it transient employment tendencies, that about every 3 years or so, you're moving either to a different branch, a different facility, a different department, or a different company. And generally speaking, it's for beneficial reasons, promotion, increase in compensation, but you've got to be prepared for that move, not just wait for it to happen to you. Am I wrong?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And I counsel people sometimes, if they do get that signing bonus, then, and they're not really sure that this is what I want to do. Maybe it's not in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and you still want to get back there, or whatever it is. Maybe you don't spend that yet. Be prepared. Realize that, the business is business here. It's not the military anymore. I mean, you're there once you can no longer provide the value to the company for whatever reason, through no fault of your own or whatever, or it just could be a struggling company that things are not working out or whatever. Be prepared that you're probably not about to start another 20-year career with the organization.
I had a peer who was he was an HR manager, 6-figure salary, doing very well. He had a long and successful career. He was probably aiming to retire, hang it up in about 10 years, and thought that this was going to be his last move at the company I was working for. A much larger financial conglomerate obtained the company and decided that they did not need a 6-figure HR manager at the plant level, at the installation level, and that they were going to shift those responsibilities to a regional HRBP. So by no fault of his own, his great 6-figure job with fantastic benefits disappeared overnight, and it wasn't really his fault. It's just, hey, it's not personal, it's business.
You're exactly right. And just accept that that's the new culture you're entering, right? I mean, and people do move. I mean, I've lost employees because another company offered him $6,000 more. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because again, we come from a loyalty-based thing, right? I mean, we're loyal to our unit. We've already displayed that by serving, 20, 30 years, all that stuff. But it's a different world out there. I mean, people move. People will leave a job for $6,000 more. And so you just have to be prepared that there's just not that permanence that you're used to, which all the more is why you need to advocate for yourself. For yourself. This is about you and your family now. You have, thank God, you have served this great nation and our service, whatever service you were in, for years. You've defended it, prepared to give your life for it, and we can't. And you would have, if you're like me, you would have stayed in as long as they would have let you stay in, right? But now that's over. Okay, it's hard to let go sometimes, but that's over. This is what it's about now: taking care of you and your family. And it is about getting the most money you can. It is what's the most benefits. It is what brings you the most happiness for you and your family. It's about you now.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's the way it should be. And by the way, the people who didn't serve have been doing that since they were 22. Okay. And so now it's our turn. It's your turn to do what's best for you and your family, and don't feel guilty about it, and advocate for yourself and get in there and fight for it.
Absolutely. And you've earned it, frankly, after 2 years, whether it's been 2 years or 2 months or 2 decades of sacrifice, you've earned the right to be a little selfish. A shout out here from Corey Ledbetter. Heard nothing but great things about Jacobs and the culture for veterans. Looks like we have a fan. Cody, thanks for your comments. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. And Jacobs is a great company. And go to our website. We're hiring in 400 different locations around the world. So
exceptional.
We would love to talk to any veterans out there.
Comment from Mike Malone, transitioning Supply Corps Navy Commander with 21 years of service. Mike, I hope the content today has been value added as you begin to transition out. Thanks for tuning in. Sir, a pleasure to have you on the show. Before we close out, would you like to tell us a little bit about Homefront Military Network?
Yes, I would. Homefront Military Network is a Colorado-based nonprofit that I'm fortunate enough to be the chairman of the board for. And we help veterans that are in crisis and military members and their family members that are in crisis get out of crisis and stay out of crisis. Homefront Military Network is something that's kind of been took my military passion, if you will, and allows me to give back to. And I urge all transitioning folks to do the same. I mean, it's hard to leave. It's hard to hang up that uniform. But there are ways as a transition person, as a retiree, to still still contribute. I do it through Homefront Military Network. There are hosts of nonprofits out there focused on veterans. Get involved with that. Volunteer at the local base if you're near one. Volunteer at the VA. Give back a little bit. Here's why. It's the right thing to do, but it also helps your transition, right? I mean, it also helps you stay connected with what you love the most. And that's our airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen that you've devoted your life to. And they've never let you down. And, you've never let them down. We'll continue on after your transition and helping out. I do it through Homefront Military Network. There are many, many ways that you can do it. And I urge you all to do that.
Absolutely fantastic. And sir, on behalf of the Recruit Military team and the folks that joined us today, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, Lucas. And thanks for all you do and Recruit Military does. You are seriously making a difference. And we appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And if you still had a coin, I'd hit you up for one. Add it to my collection. Folks out there in internet land, if you haven't already done so, do yourself a solid and register at www.recruitmilitary.com for access to over 400,000 job opportunities from 16,000 employers, opportunities coast to coast, around the world, and around the corner. You'll also find a library of content all designed to support transitioning service members, veteran job seekers, and mil spouses as they seek their next adventure in meaningful civilian employment. That about wraps it up for us today. And Brigadier General Harencak, tune in next week. We're going to hear from an amazing personality, Virginia's own Alfredo Torres from the Virginia Department of Veterans Services. We're going to be talking about skill bridge opportunities. You won't want to miss it. Sir, thank you again.
Thank you, Lucas.
And to everybody out there in internet land, until next week, good luck and Godspeed.